Somewhere deep inside a crashed Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, hidden beneath millions of dollars of carbon fiber and engineering mythology, was a secret nobody expected. And once it got out, the internet couldn't stop talking about it. The car in question wasn't just any Chiron. It was a Per Sport, one of only around 60 ever built. An 8-litre, quad-turbocharged W16 pushing roughly 1,500 horsepower. Reworked suspension, sharpened aerodynamics, a price tag exceeding $3.5 million before you even picked a color. This wasn't just a fast car. It was a statement that money and engineering could exist beyond ordinary limits. One of those 60 belonged to Florida influencer Alex Gonzalez. And for a while, it was everywhere: videos, events, social media. Hypercars are magnets for attention. The problem is, attention cuts both ways. The crash itself was almost embarrassingly ordinary.
No racetrack.
No dramatic speed run. Just traffic slowing down at the wrong moment, a chain reaction, and a violent rear impact that sent shockwaves straight through the Bugatti's front end. Carbon fiber shattered. Aerodynamic channels collapsed. Airbags deployed. A Bugatti technician was flown in from Europe to assess the damage, and the verdict was brutal. The car was written off, declared economically impractical to restore. It ended up at Copart, the auction house where wrecked exotics go to die. That should have been the end of the story. But here's where it gets interesting. Gonzalez bought it back. Reports put the repurchase cost at around $1.6 million, before fees pushed it even higher. On paper, it looked like a catastrophic financial decision. In practice, it was the beginning of something much bigger. Because that's when Matt Armstrong got involved. Armstrong had built his reputation rebuilding seriously damaged performance cars on camera. But a Chiron Per Sport was a different category entirely. The car wasn't just dented. Its carbon fiber monocoque, the single structural shell that everything else attaches to, had absorbed forces it was never meant to survive. And what happened next, nobody in the hypercar world was prepared for. The first wall they hit wasn't made of carbon fiber. It was made of corporate policy. Bugatti refused to support the rebuild. No official parts. No authorized access. In the hypercar world, that's not a minor inconvenience. It's a near-death sentence for any restoration project. The Chiron operates within a tightly controlled manufacturer ecosystem where almost every major component is tied directly to the car's VIN. Once that VIN was flagged inside Bugatti's internal system, the normal restoration pathway effectively vanished. Dealers couldn't process parts requests. Factory-back servicing was off the table. The car still existed physically, but inside Bugatti's infrastructure, it had become invisible. And then came a very public challenge from mate Rimac, questioning whether a rebuild of this scale could ever meet factory standards outside of Bugatti's controlled environment in Molsheim, France. A car capable of nearly 300 miles per hour, rebuilt through improvisation, the safety concerns were real. But the rebuild team saw it differently. To them, it was still a machine. An extraordinarily complex one, yes, but not untouchable. And that's when everything shifted. With official channels closed, the team built their own system from scratch. Damaged parts were scanned in high resolution and converted into precise 3D digital models. CNC machines translated those files into physical components with aerospace-level tolerances. The chassis was split open, something almost unheard of outside Bugatti's own facilities, to access the internal drivetrain mounting points that had absorbed the worst of the crash. Cooling systems destroyed beyond repair were custom engineered to match original performance specifications. Electronic control units were recalibrated so rebuilt components could communicate correctly across the car's entire digital network. None of this followed a factory manual, because no factory manual existed for what they were doing. What they found inside the car during teardown, though, that nobody expected. As Armstrong stripped the Chiron layer by layer on camera, something strange started appearing. Hidden assemblies carried Volkswagen Group supplier codes. The same industrial cataloging format found across Audi, Porsche, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Volkswagen platforms. The car that sold for over $3 million was sharing DNA with the same industrial ecosystem that builds the Golf and the A3. The internet caught fire. But the discovery that truly broke the conversation was the airbag module. The passenger airbag unit inside this multi-million-dollar hypercar appeared strikingly similar in architecture to components from MQB platform Volkswagen Group vehicles, cars that sell for under $40,000. Armstrong reportedly sourced a visually similar unit through secondary channels for a few $100s. A few hundred. Inside a $3 million hypercar. But before you call the whole thing a scam, the real story is more complicated than that. Shared supplier components are completely standard practice across the entire automotive industry, even at the highest levels. Ferrari does it. McLaren does it. Lamborghini does it. Developing bespoke hardware for every hidden sensor, relay, and wiring connector would add cost and introduce reliability risks. Nobody builds everything from scratch. What actually ignited the controversy wasn't the parts themselves. It was the price gap once those parts entered the Bugatti service ecosystem. An oil change on the Veyron reportedly runs between $20,000 and $25,000 because accessing the drain plugs requires dismantling significant sections of the underbody. Replacement tires can reportedly exceed $40,000 a set because Michelin engineered specific compounds just to survive sustained speeds above 250 miles per hour. And then there are the headlights. Replacement headlight assemblies for the Chiron have been quoted at between $25,000 and $35,000 each. More than a brand new Toyota Corolla. The explanation is real. Bugatti produced only around 500 Chirons total, which means certification, tooling, and supply costs are shared across an impossibly small customer base. But critics argued those economics still don't fully account for the numbers. And somewhere in that gap between the actual cost of a component and what Bugatti charges to replace it, a much larger question emerged. The defining test of the entire rebuild came quietly. The W16 engine fired. That single moment confirmed everything: compression stable, fuel delivery functioning, ignition timing correct, electronic systems communicating across the rebuilt architecture. Then the car moved under its own power. For a machine that had been written off, auctioned, stripped to its skeleton, and rebuilt outside every official channel, that movement carried weight that no press release ever could. A previously dead Chiron Per Sport was alive again. Not fully finished. Not factory certified. But running, moving, and real. What the rebuild ultimately exposed wasn't just the contents of a hypercar. It exposed the mechanics of exclusivity itself, how manufacturer ecosystems are built not just around engineering, but around access, control, and the careful management of perception. When you spend $3 million on a car, you're not just buying the machine. You're buying into a world where the manufacturer decides what can be repaired, how, by whom, and at what cost. Armstrong's rebuild didn't just challenge a single insurance write-off. It challenged the entire framework. And for millions of people watching online, it raised a question worth sitting with. When skilled engineers can independently restore a machine the manufacturer declared beyond saving, who really gets to decide what a car is worth?